Hi, and welcome to the Scenic Route podcast. This is the show for building a successful and sustainable business on your terms. My name is Jen, and I'm a rebranding sociologist with a soft spot for rhubarb pie. Each week, I'll strive to expand your branding, business expertise, and mindset capacity. I'm so excited you're here, and now let's get into today's episode. MJ is passionate about empowering clarity in those around her. She believes that we do not have to accept a stressed out, exhausted, and burned out life. Helping people create the life they want to live is her primary goal as a clarity coach. As a life and business strategist, MJ works with individuals to empower them to live a life in a balance. Accountability, clarity, and actionable goals are the tools MJ uses to guide her clients towards alignment in both work and life. MJ is the author of Rest and Renew, a 30-day journey to connect with God, and the founder and host of the Burnout Business Mom podcast. MJ, welcome to the Scenic Route podcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to chat today.
Yeah, it's an honor. Especially because you also have a podcast.
I do.
So I'm always like, oh, I'm talking to a fellow podcaster. So I have to bring my A game.
It's true. It does feel like that, doesn't it? When we talk to other podcasters,
You're like, oh, right. It's kind of like, I don't know. It probably feels similar if you're like on the stage in front of other actors and you feel like they know all like the tricks. Like we don't have any tricks anyway, but like it feels like, they know all the tricks or something.
Yes.
And you're like,
it's so true. Meanwhile, we're all just like, no, it's fine. Relax. It's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all pretty mellow.
Like most of the time we're pretty decent people.
Right. Absolutely. For sure. Thank you so much. This is awesome. I can't wait to chat.
Yeah. And before we dive into the chat, MJ, walk us briefly through your story, like how you started and how you got to the MJ you're today.
Sure.
What were your pivotal crossroads?
Absolute pivotal crossroads. Okay. So I was married the first time and my starter husband. And, so
we talk husbands like other people talk homes. Loving it.
Absolutely.
Loving it.
So we were married, had 3 kids, and a huge storm swept through our area. And we thought we'd be okay. And we weren't. We ended up like escaping literally with the kids, holding them above our heads while water gushed into the house. It was like super traumatic. And I ended up going up to, he drove me to my parents' house the next day. And all I kept thinking during that ride was, we're safe. Okay, this is good. And then he left. And that was like the end of our marriage. That was it. He dropped me and my children off at my parents' house and peaced out. And I was like, oh. Now, it wasn't a very good marriage to begin with. But in my head, I sort of did not see it coming, right? So,
especially when you just gone through a traumatic episode.
Yeah. It was a super eye-opening moment, right? Because I had thought we'd gotten through the storm. Oh yeah. God was like, the storm's just starting, lady. Buckle up, right?
That was the warm-up.
Yeah. Just wanted to see how bad I could shake you up. So then I was a single mom with 3 kids.
Wow.
Hadn't worked.
How old were your kids at the time?
Oh my gosh, they were little. So my youngest was only a couple months old. She had been born in May, and this was like October. So it was rough for a while. I immediately had to go out and work because I was a stay-at-home mom before that. Mm-hmm. And I put my head down and I worked. And that's what I did. Right. I hustled for the next few years. That's all I did. I didn't have the luxury of deciding, what does MJ want to do with her life? No, it was just whatever job I could take to put food on the table, I was in it.
Yeah. MJ was sold.
Yes, I'm done. I'll do it. Thanks. I can eat tonight. Perfect. That's for me. So I did have my parents around and they did help with the kids and that was awesome. But
otherwise, every dime you would have made would daycare.
Right out the window. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. So it was super helpful. And that was a big blessing to me, but it was still a really difficult time. And then we fast forward through years of this and I finally meet a wonderful man and we're dating. We buy this house in this dream neighborhood. We had awesome neighbors. It was perfect. And I hate to use that word, but it was perfect, right? From the outside, it looked great. And I was a hot mess inside where I should have really been calming down in my life. I all of a sudden, went into hyperdrive, which I already was because I was overworking.
I was like,
for
you're
years.
already hustling. Oh, okay. So you
Right.
went in Uber hustling.
I did, because now I was like, oh, well, I've got to be the perfect wife and the perfect neighbor and the perfect community member. And I need to be the PTA mom, and I need to do this and I need to do that.
Okay,
So I
and
was
if
like
someone
sitting
wants
on,
to have their monologue, you're like, I'm
I'm
here,
like,
I
let me do
volunteer.
it. Oh yeah, you didn't have dinner tonight? Hold on, let me whip you up some stuff, right? Like, so I
Let's
was
do a
like,
potluck. Like I'm like, let's
I'll feed everybody. Who's there? Who's coming? Right. So I was like a total
okay, I'm exhausted
basket
only from
case.
listening to you. Okay, yeah.
Right. So my husband would see me, and he's amazing. He really is. I really lucked out with my forever husband. He's wonderful.
Yay.
Yeah, my husband was just like, you need to relax, you need to calm down. And I
That
was like,
surely helped.
no, I gotta be better. I gotta do more. I gotta take on more things, right? Like everybody's watching. They're all watching to see if the woman that had 3 kids, that was the single mom, is gonna, fail or fall right now. Like, what's happening? I was like, I gotta make everything perfect from the outside. And he was like, you are keeping up a pace that is just unrealistic in life. And I was like, I got this. It's totally fine. Yeah, I didn't have it though. I really didn't.
Yeah, I'm like,
So
yeah, that sounds familiar.
yeah.
Sounds familiar. And like, oh, I know how I reacted to when my partner told me that your whatever pace this is, it's not sustainable. I was like, and like the worst part is like he was obviously, of course, right. And I know it now. But then I also knew it. On some level, I knew. I always knew. But
Right.
I don't know. My rebel brain kicked in, and I'm like,
You can't
say,
tell me.
Is this a challenge? Challenge accepted. And like
yes.
Gonna race yourself to like a hospital bed, but
right to death, right?
Good luck. Like
it's so true. And that's literally how I ended up like sitting at my doctor's office with her, like, you're gonna have a heart attack. And I laughed at her. I was like, come on. And she was like, no, literally, look at your blood pressure. And I was like, oh. All right. Maybe I should slow down a little bit, right? So this went on for months, because I still went home and thought, well, by slow down, you mean like get up in the morning. I'll do some yoga, right? That's supposed to calm you down.
I meditate. I download the Calm
meditated.
App.
Yeah, I did that. And
I eat like one veggie more.
Right. And then like 6 months later, she was still like, so are you trying to help yourself into the grave, or like what is happening?
Whatever you think you're doing, it's
not enough. Yeah. Right. And so I got to the point where COVID was about to hit. My husband was going away for 45-day detail for work. I was alone with the kids, and I had like one of those come to Jesus moments where I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, all this stuff is happening. All this stuff has happened with the kids that I'm not present for. Like, I'm here, I'm in the room, but I wasn't plugging into any moments at all. And that kind of led me to switch gears. Like, and of course, my first thought in switching gears was, well, if I change my job, it will fix everything. That's really not true, right? Because I wasn't burned out just with work. I was kind of like life burnout. And there's a big difference.
It can help.
Yes.
If the job is one of the big stressors. But what often happens, and that's also true when you switch from corporate to entrepreneurship, you just bring in all your patterns, and you just be like the same you were in just a different environment. It's like, yeah.
That's it. And that's the problem, right? So like I just I left that corporate and I went to entrepreneurship as a ghostwriter. And what did I do? I just kept right on running along. But now I was running my own business, and I had the stress of figuring out what that meant and how to do it. Yeah. And so I just kept running in burnout for a little bit until I finally started to switch gears in my life. And I had to change everything around.
What brought you to switch gears, though?
I think, I think I had a moment where it was like Christmas time. I hadn't even taken on my first ghostwriter client yet. I was just doing the back building of the business, right? I took some time off of my W-2 job. I quit that, and I took some transition time. And it was during that transition time that the kids were saying how one of their favorite moments from the previous Christmas was when we had our neighbors over and we were all sitting around and we're singing Christmas carols. And they were like, but you know what sucked? And I was like, what? And they were like, you weren't present. And I was like, what? And they were like, well, you were there. You were in the room, but you wouldn't sit down and relax and be in the moment. And I was like,
Ooh,
okay.
sting.
That was a big moment for me.
Ooh,
And I
that's
was
a
like,
stinger. Yeah.
yeah. And then it kind of went to bed that night thinking, what am I really teaching the kids? Like this whole time I thought I was teaching them hard work ethic and, you just do what you got to do and you handle all your responsibilities. But what I was really teaching them was how to overwork, how to put yourself last, how to not pay attention to your family. I mean, I was doing all the things from the outside, but on the inside, I wasn't. And the people closest to me, like my children, noticed that in a huge way. And so even though my husband
keep it
had
up 24/7, right?
Right.
And especially
Absolutely.
kids pick up on stuff like that anyway. Like, mom, hello.
Yeah. It's really eye-opening when your kids start to call you out, even respectfully, on your flaws.
When they call you out, or even earlier on when they do. I mean, they learn by watching what you do, right? So
yes.
I mean, when they start doing something and you're like, what the heck are you doing?
Right.
Like, oh,
that's where you got it. Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
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 It's really eye-opening. So once I had that moment, I started to transition our whole life. I really did. Like I sat everybody down. I was like, what do we want the picture of our family home to look like? Like, what do we want it to feel like? And what steps do we all need to take to get us there? Because now I recognize the fact that my patterns, they had all had to either accommodate those patterns or adapt those patterns. And so it had to be a shift that happened inside the entire household, as well as in my own personal habits and behaviors outside of that. So it was something that took time. It did. It took a lot of time. But I feel
like, I mean, kudos, right? Like your approach is brilliant, right? Because whenever people do something like that, like switching gears, they often don't or not fully or openly communicate the whole story, right? Like they're not setting people down and be like, hey, listen, I am going to go switch gears now. This will look XYZ. This will look like I'm not going to pick up your laundry anymore. Or I don't know, whatever it is, right? I'm not going to clean out the dishwasher. I'm not going to go walk the dog. I'm not, whatever. You will have to step up.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what happens is when we don't communicate that fully and openly, people, because you've always done it. I mean, of course, I would also expect you to clean the dishes next time.
Right.
And when they don't do it, you kind of like silently resent them for not doing it.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, I really wish this were from there. Like, so kudos for you for actually like sitting them down and being like, look, this is what's going to happen.
Thank you. I mean, I kind of recognized that if I didn't pull them in, it was going to feel like a battle. Because I knew I had to slow down, which meant that, some of their stuff that we were running back and forth and do. And I was like, okay, guys, like we can't run like this. We need to decide what's important to our family and what isn't, and take some things off the table, and everybody has to give a little. And, knowing that and presenting that to them and kind of saying like, you want mommy more present. Well, then mommy can't run around to 300 things a day.
Yeah, then mommy cannot drive you to this and that club and the library at the swimming pool.
Right.
And
right. I want you to have all those experiences, but I'm only one person. And and this, again, like my husband for his job was traveling a lot at this time. So, he was there on the weekends, or he'd have like crazy flights and have crazy hours. So he was there, but he wasn't there. And there was times where we were going, chunks of time without him. So I was like, guys, like I can't operate like this. And if you want me plugged in better, then this is the accommodations we're all going to have to make. And so they did. They stepped up really well. And it was funny because then as I started getting bigger in my ghostwriting business, I was working predominantly with female entrepreneurs. And conversation after conversation, they were all burnt out. They were all exhausted. They were all tired. Nobody knew how to balance anything. And they all kept saying, oh, everything's so balanced in your life. It's so, you make it look so easy. And I'm like, okay, not easy, but you can balance your life too.
Yeah.
And here's how we can do this. Right. So I would start to coach them through it. And then I had a bunch of people tell me, you should just go be a coach. You should just do this. And so I did. I've transitioned from ghostwriting
just
and
go
now,
and balance other people's lives.
and now I just coach other people on the clarity they need in their life to bring balance so that they stay out of burnout. And I think it's something that resonates with a lot of people because burnout is something, for me, it's always right behind me, right? Like it's always right there. If I'm not super careful and really intentional about how I live my life,
it's probably similar to like when you're in AA, right? Like, you haven't really healed from it. You've recovered, but it's like, oh, it's a slippery slope, right? It's kind of like you got to be vigilant about it. It's lurking. It's lurking in the shadows. I absolutely for sure feel that too. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's what's kind of led me on this path and this plan, and that's how I end up coaching and my podcast, all that good stuff.
I love it. I mean, COVID also surely didn't help with any of the burnout things. Like,
no, people were like having to school their kids and figure stuff out and work from home when they weren't used to it. Like it was a lot of stress for people. And I feel like even with this time, as we're, I don't want to say coming out of it, because some places are not moving as quickly out of it as others, but even post-COVID, whatever that means.
Are we still post-COVID? It doesn't feel like that here anyway. But
here it feels fine, but I live in South Georgia, so it didn't really shut down much down here either. Yeah. But for some people, it really did, and they're still just like getting their bearings in life. But even so, I feel like life is different now, and so recovering from all of that and trying to move forward, it adds a layer of stress that maybe people didn't plan for or still haven't recovered from.
So I'm curious, have you burned out during this experience of trying to be like the Stepford neighbor, or were you always kind of like close on the edge of burning out? Or
like when I first got married, now this is going back a couple of years ago, we've been married 4 years now. So when I first got married, I really was constantly like, I was okay, and burned out. And then I was okay, and then I was burned out. And then I was okay, and I was burned out. Like it was a real yo-yo for me. Until I learned how to, I call it like my burnout blinkers, like until I started to recognize what those things are that trigger me and how do I maintain the balance thereafter. So I have like a little 4R system that I created for myself, and I teach it and I coach it now. So the first step is recognizing burnout. And that's not just like, hey, I'm in burnout. You know you're in burnout when you're in burnout, but it's recognizing.
But you also don't really notice it for a long time.
Right. You don't notice it until it's bad.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I had my burnout, that's, I don't know, 11 years ago or something like that. I mean, now looking back, I was in burnout mode months earlier than I realized. I mean, my light bulb moment was like when shit hit the fan, and it was like bad.
Yeah.
And I was like completely, it was like, no, okay. Yeah.
Like your life's crashing. It's crashing.
Yeah. I was crying at the shop. I went grocery shopping and I was crying, like bawling my eyes out, like bawling my eyes, like all like ugly, full on ugly crying at the shop, in the shop, because my favorite yogurt I wanted to buy was out of stock.
Oh yeah.
And completely like, because I was working so long, such crazy hours, like everything was like 7:22, I do this, 7:23, I do this, 7. So that little piece not fitting into my plan was like, so I was bawling my eyes out. My partner, poor soul, he was standing there, he was like, I know this is not about the yogurt. No, it's not about the yogurt. And also part like, I mean, you're really smart, so how did you not like see this earlier?
Well, that's it. There's a whole level of like guilt associated with burnout, and like your pride gets tweaked, but other moms over there are handling this. How can I not? I have to handle this. They can handle it. I need to handle it. Right. Or like when you start to realize how much time and effort you spent doing one thing when you really should have been doing this other thing. I mean, there's a lot of emotional pieces that take a lot of time to not just heal from, but to swallow first. Like you have to deal with it.
How did
swallow
you
it down.
your guilty moments?
I did. Like, I just kept saying, I rationalized a lot, like I would be like, well, I have to do it this way because of this, or I have to do it like this because of that. Like, and I would put all of this extra pressure on myself to.
Yeah, you have this very elaborate thought process flow chart thingy. And it's actually all just like a whole big bunch of bullshit.
It's garbage. It's garbage.
So garbage.
Total garbage.
But it makes so much sense in the moment.
Right. And I had to do it exactly like that. Like you cannot take a step out. It had to be done just like this every day. Super precise. Like it's exhausting now looking back at it. And I'm still a pretty big list person, but my list is very different now than it was then.
How is your list different from, like, was it task-based before?
Yes.
And now
it was task-based before. But it was also, like you're saying, from like 7 to 7:05, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And then from 7:05 to 7:10, I'm going to drink my coffee. Like it was super uber organized. And, in my head, I thought, well, I can get all 100 things done today if I schedule every moment of the day. And so that's what I was doing. But most productivity coaches will tell you that's 100% wrong because you can't be good at 100 things a day. You can only be good at maybe 3, maybe 5. So pick those things and prioritize them and have those on your list. And that's it. That's it. And like learn how to create the difference between the things that are real priorities versus the busy work.
Yeah. What is actually burning and what is just hyped up
fodder.
Yeah. And it's just not like, actually, but that's a hard thing. Like it's hard because I feel because it has a lot to do with boundaries, with setting your boundaries and being very protective of them.
Yes,
and kind of
and most people
your
see
ground.
That as selfish, right? People think they hear boundaries and they think they're being selfish.
Women with kids anyway. Like but how? Like how dare you?
Yeah.
You're a mom. Yeah. How dare you?
Right. You need to have them.
Oh yeah, I feel like that goes into the lane of no, showering is not self-care. That's basic hygiene. Right. You need more time to yourself than to poop and to clean yourself.
Correct. It's so true.
You do not have to feel guilty about this. Please do not.
No, please don't. Right. Take the time. Go take the 45-minute bath. It's okay.
But how did you heal from, let's call it the mom guilt because that's the buzzword anyway, but how do you heal from that?
So I really had to come to terms with the fact that a lot of it was my own making, like a lot of it, right? Which is so,
that was a good moment to have.
Felt good. Felt real good,
Yeah.
Because the reality of it was nobody put these expectations on me. Right? Like maybe in the beginning when my ex had left and I had to feed my children, there was expectation. But fast forward later in my life when I was doing okay and I was working a good job and I actually loved my bosses from the job that I ended up quitting from. But in those things, nobody put those expectations on me to do XYZ. I put those expectations on myself. And so it wasn't the fact that I had to battle what other people thought I should be doing. It was what I thought that other people thought I should be doing. Right. So it was really hard to swallow that and to like make a list of, I had to make like this is what you really like, here's your reality. And here's, what you thought other people wanted. And none of this is true. Like none of this on this other side is true. And so you
actually asked them if that's what I want.
Right. Right. Like, put that into perspective for yourself and then sit there and go, okay, well, here's what I can do. I can either sit here and lament over how many years I spent trying to achieve what I thought other people wanted as a perfect model, or I can put this in a bubble. I do this with my kids all the time. Like we put things in a bubble and we blow them away. I was like, you can put it in a bubble in front of you.
Balloon and I let it go.
That's right. I'm letting it go because I can't move forward and heal from this if I keep looking at that guilt. I have to just say, okay, I'm feeling guilt. I acknowledge that I'm feeling guilt. I acknowledge that this is why I'm feeling guilt. Here's some of the things I can actually do about it. And here's a huge list of stuff I can't do anything about. And so I'm just going to let it go. And I think that was really, really hard. It was something that I had to constantly remind myself of. I actually had to include my husband in. I was like, listen, when you hear me like doing this verbal diarrhea, you need to stop me and be like, okay, put it in the balloon and like blow it away, because don't let me go down that path, because I'll stay there in depression mode over how miserably I failed myself, my children, my family. Meanwhile, none of them were thinking that. They were all like, yay, mom's going to get, she's going to get happier. She's going to get more present. They were super excited about the transition. It was only me who was focusing on the guilt part.
Yeah.
So,
but that's, I mean, that's also because your children were too young and your husband is a man. So the guilt weighs different.
It does.
The guilt weighs different. It does, right? If you've been socially conditioned or socially grown up to be a woman, the weight feels different.
It's different.
But
it does.
I think it's super important what you said, like that the hardest pill or one of the hardest pills to swallow was to acknowledge your own part in all of this, right? Like
it's hard.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I always believe we always have to take responsibility too for what we've did. I mean, I know I had to take responsibility for how I went into burnout, for not putting up boundaries, for letting those people walk all over me, and not just be there and be like, stick it up where the sun don't shine, right? And like, but at the same time, I think I kind of want to challenge this. It does feel like it's just us, right? Like that we reacted this way and stuff, but we only react this way because we've internalized patterns, unconscious patterns, conscious patterns from a very early stage, right? Like, yes, no one wanted to make you feel this way, or no one implied that you should drive all the kids to school or should do whatever, have the perfect lawn, the perfect Christmas decorations. But at the same time, that's something in you that believed you have to do this, you have to be a certain way. That's conditionalized. That's
100%.
Right? That's coming from somewhere. And usually because our shit like that builds up in your formative years, like 3, 4-ish to 7, 8-ish. Right. So a lot of the time it's like, thanks mom, thanks dad. Or like, as you've said, realizing, oh, I modeled something to my kids that I actually don't want.
See, now I didn't think back to my formative years. Maybe I need to think back that way. But for me, what I saw was I was a divorced single mom. Like that was the mantra that played in my head, that I had failed at my first marriage, that I wasn't doing a good job with my children because now they were being, raised just by me.
But where do you think that is coming from? Enough. Right? Like, I mean, that had to come from somewhere.
Yes, you're right.
Like you wouldn't necessarily think of yourself like, oh, I failed. So something, let's call it society, media, whatever,
right,
put it in your head over years and years and years, slowly and gradually, that divorcing, failing,
right,
that
failed.
I don't know, not having good grades,
failing,
not having lovely handmade Christmas decorations, failing, not bringing homemade cookies to the school bazaar, failing.
You're right. You're right. Absolutely.
So that has to come from somewhere. And that's not intrinsically you. It's something that you picked up along the way, right? Either from unconsciously from your parents, from other guardians, from
society, whatever media. You're seeing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. And I think you have to, it's kind of important to know that so that you can create the mindset shift that you need to not stay stuck in that wheel, right? Because otherwise you're running in circles. That mantra is playing in your head
Oh yeah.
and you're not getting out of it. You're just going to
Yeah.
keep living in that
Yeah,
and always putting that
keep
pressure
putting
on
on
yourself.
a dime in a jukebox to have it replayed
Yes.
and replayed.
Yes. Yes. It's important to, and while I don't love to stay in messy places, I think it's always important to review your messy places to see how you need to reframe that so that you move forward and you don't stay in the messy place. So I think, for my own personal burnout, that's super something, I have to be mindful of that all the time. I really do. It always has to play in my head that I don't have to be anybody else's idea of perfect, that I am, my kids love me just how I am. My husband loves me just how I am. I can show up messy, dirty, whatever. And they're all like, hey, mom, cool. Super happy as long as I'm present in the moment and not sitting here trying to do 45 other things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And also like looking back and not crapping on yourself for what you did then. Just because you've grown through it. Right. You're obviously wiser now.
Sure.
It doesn't give you permission to crap all over your past self for not knowing this.
Not at all.
And I feel this creeps in so often, right? That we're like, oh, but I don't know, especially that the guilt part again, right? Oh, I should have known not to do this. Like, oh, I'm a smart person. I should have known that this is like, well, but whatever you hold dear about yourself.
Yeah.
You kind of use it against yourself.
Yes.
Which is amazing. It's
not good.
Yeah.
It's true. And it's true. And that's part of why I like coaching in this facet, is because I want to show people it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to come from a place. It's okay not to beat yourself up from that place. It's okay to grow from that place. It's okay. Like, it's all okay. Nobody's perfect. We're all always evolving. And if I had known now what I knew back then, well, I would have missed X amount of years of my life. And there were some good things that happened during that part. There were some bad things, but there were some good things that happened. So I would never want to fast forward that or unlive those moments, because they all brought me here to, helping other people, helping other moms, helping other entrepreneurs who are feeling burned out and need to get over that hump. So,
but I feel that's only a statement you can make if you're truly at comfort and at peace with where you are at now.
It's true.
Right? Because so many people, or at least so many clients who come to me and they're like, oh, by now I should have this, that.
Yes, right? Yes, I know that.
And I mean, I get it, right? Like, I mean, I used to, my birthdays used to be my I should have markers.
Right.
Oh, I don't know, 32 now. By now I should have.
Right.
So huge failure because
I don't have the checklist out. I'm not there yet. Oh crap, I'm failing.
Right. So we have to kind of like have all that, I don't know, gooey goodness when we look back. We have to be at peace with where we're at.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
That's hard.
It is.
Like, how to acknowledge, like, yes, everything is good. Or like, not good is a silly word, but like all is well. Like, how to balance that. I have everything I need. I'm well. And yes, I still have goals. I still want to do things. I still want to achieve things.
And it's still messy. I'm still, dealing with my mess. Like, that's part of balance.
Yeah. And which then, like, how to get comfortable with the mess of now.
Right. It's hard. I think it's hard, but I think we somehow, I guess because we live in this generation where things are easier, right, than they were in past generations. And we somehow think that if things aren't all easy all the time, that things are bad. Well, it's not necessarily bad. You're just in a mucky moment, because we go through, I don't know about you, but I know I've gone through seasons, chunks of time where life has felt really pretty good. And then I've gone through chunks of times where I felt like I was clawing my way out from a bottomless pit that I was never going to see the top of. And I think that that's a natural part of life and a natural progression of life. But too many people spend too long trying to hide that. And so the unrealistic expectation for society is that if everything doesn't feel good all the time, you're doing something wrong. But that's not the reality. The reality is most people that you look at on your street are dealing with some form of messy, a big messy. It could be somebody who's, fighting cancer, battling for their life.
Everyone has their baggage. Everyone has their thing to carry.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's always those moments in life, big or small. But I think we've conditioned ourselves to kind of live in the happy. And so when things go wrong or they aren't as happy, we like berate ourselves about that. And I think that that's a misconception because just
we
because
steward ourselves into misery by overthinking it.
Right. Like it's so true. Things are not always good. And things can look like they're good for people. And you don't know what they're fighting or you don't know what they just recovered from. So
but I mean, but there's beauty and vulnerability. The other way is also true, right? Like you can look at something and be like, fuck, shit, this would totally crush me. And the person that's actually happening to is fine. Like, fine. Yeah, of course it's shitty, but it's okay, right? I'm going to do it. It's fine, right? Like it works both ways, right? It's
100%.
What you can change about is how you approach it. Take this right off the bat. Like we're not talking about like toxic positivity or whatever that means. Like this is not sustainable. This is not working. Like, no, but yeah, really being at peace with where you're at and seeing it as a learning opportunity, seeing what you can do with that.
Yeah, I think it's true.
And like,
it's kind of like a gratitude mindset, right? Like where you know what to be grateful for, even if it's that small thing.
Yeah.
I think that's
it's like
part of that
piece. Like shifts, right? Like for example, so my kid currently has an ear infection, kind of like a blocked sinus. So he snores. We have a family bed situation, so he snores. Obviously, it's not like loud guy snoring, but I mean, it's kind of cute snoring, but still sometimes it can like piss me off. But like, and then I can either lay in bed and be like so annoyed because he's snoring and I can't sleep. I mean, I can't kick him out. I could kick my partner out when he's snoring, but with the kid, I don't know. I feel that's not appropriate. So I kind of like, okay, how can I spin this so I'm not getting mad at myself, resentful at my kid because I can't sleep. Yes, I mean, I walked out. I sleep on the guest bed if it's really bad, but I know he would just come crawling back in with me. So that's not the point. So I kind of like, okay, what if I spin this in a way where I say, hey, he's laying so close to me that I can hear him. And he seeking my comfort when he's ill is a fucking privilege.
Absolutely. Because you're going to wake up and he's going to be 18 and he's not going to want mommy anymore. And you're going to cry like me, like I'm crying now.
So I'm like, okay, that helped me to kind of like spin it. And not saying you should spin it to stay in toxic situations. No, get out.
No.
But sometimes when yes, I always have alternatives and I always can do something different. Sometimes it's just not what you actually want to do. So a little kind of like reframe can really help you to be like, I don't know. I fell asleep then. Like, I was like, oh, that's actually a really nice thought to fall asleep to.
Yeah.
Like he's so close. I can hear him. I can hear he's safe. Like when they're very little, you hear no sound on the baby monitor. You're like, should I go in to check if he's still breathing?
Yes. Oh, it's true. And you're totally right. Like this is not, toxic positivity. We're not discussing situations that are really bad and you need to, for your safety or the safety of loved ones, or, you escape those. Absolutely. You do what you need to do. You get out of those situations. But we're talking about those crap moments in the middle of the day where you're sitting in traffic or you're stressed out or you need to be somewhere and your tire blew or whatever it is, where you kind of just say to yourself, okay, well, could have been worse, right? Like, I could have been in a car accident,
like taking care of someone.
Right.
And you're like, I'm not going to take care of you today, grandma. suck it up, right? Like
Right.
that's not gonna happen.
No.
Right. But still,
Yeah.
it can weigh on you. Or
Mm-hmm.
like taking care of your kids.
Yeah.
Yes, we love them. Yes, we love them. We want the best for them. Do we always love to take care of them? No.
No. No. It gets
No.
tiring. No, I don't want to make you your 35th snack for the day. Like, no, I don't. I'll do it. I'll put a smile on and do it. But yeah, we all have those moments. And you're right. It's better to reframe it in our heads and say, well, pretty soon they won't be asking me for a snack. They'll be self-sufficient. They won't be here. That loud noise inside while they play, that's not going to be here in a couple of years. So it is helpful, I think, in finding peace in those moments to be able to reshape to like a gratitude phrase.
Yeah, I love that. And that's also not like, and that's not just exclusive. Like if you're not listening and you're like, I have no kids, so this is not relating to me. It does. It very well does. I mean, you can bring this gratitude mindset also into your business.
Yes.
Right? Like, have you ever showed gratitude when you launched something and no one bought it?
Right.
I don't know. Have you?
Right.
Like, it's such a weird concept, but like, what can I be grateful for? What can I like learn from this that I can be grateful for?
Sure.
That this was like a flop or something that was like nilch.
Right. I always feel like if you look at stuff like that, I mean, we're all people who try something that fails, right? Whether you do it in business, you do it in a relationship, you do it as a friend, a daughter, a wife, mother, whatever. Yeah. Doesn't matter. We've all tried something that has been like an utter flop, and crickets have met our ears, and we're all like waiting for a big clap and nobody's paying attention, right? We've all done it. And I think it's really important, number one, to know how to laugh at yourself, but number two,
Jesus, yes.
And number two, to be able to look at that and be like, okay, well, I just learned a really awesome way not to do this again. I'm just going to try a different way, right? It doesn't mean you should never launch something again. Doesn't mean don't ever get into a relationship. It doesn't, if I had that mindset, I would have never, my first husband, it was really a toxic, abusive marriage. If I had that mindset, I never would have found what I found, right? So even with bosses, I've had bosses that were awful. What if I said, oh, that's it, I'm never going to work for anybody else again? Well, no, I needed to work for other people because I needed to learn skills when I was younger, right? And so learning how to take that and be like, okay, well, I just learned another way that this doesn't work for me or my audience or my room or whatever. I think always framing it in a, again, not a toxic positive way, but in a way that you see the lesson, even if the lesson's awful, right? Like sometimes the lessons we see are pretty bad.
Well, mostly like especially when we fail at something that is dear to us. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
It's crushing.
It's crushing. And at the same time, you can't let it, like, you can feel sad about it. Like you can grieve it. But at the same time, I feel it's always kind of like, what story are you telling yourself?
Yes.
When that happened? Like, what are you telling yourself when the launch failed? What are you telling yourself when
the business failed?
You get divorced. What are you telling yourself if your kid has dirty clothes in school? Like,
right.
Whatever. Right?
Whatever.
What story is playing in your head?
Yes.
That's the.
And what story do you want to play there? Do you want to be that person that got knocked down the first time and just never got back up to try again? Like, is that the story you want to tell in 5 years? Or is the story you want to tell that you got knocked down, you figured out a bunch of ways not to do something, and then you finally found the one way to do it?
Yeah, you did a couple of funny TikToks about it, and
that's
now you're
right.
good.
That's right. It's a comical thing. You can write a little book about it one day, make everybody laugh. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, not to do shit. Like, I mean, that's always...
It's true.
It's always gold.
It is. It's very true. People resonate with other people's mistakes, especially when you get to the place where you can tell it in humor and you can laugh at yourself, right? The whole room will laugh with you as long as you are able to laugh at yourself and see it, So
we all need a bit more humor.
So true. It is very true.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's important, even like pulling in the burned out process when I had to go through it and I had to reshape some of the things in my life, like some of my bad habits, and you have to reshape those things. I remember looking at some of them being like, this is ridiculous. Why was I even doing this? Who thought this was a good idea? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, like the cans in the closet do not all need to face the same direction. Okay. They just don't. They don't have to. Okay. They can, but they don't have to. Like, I don't need to be stressing out that the tomato soup is not all faced out correctly. Like, this is not a thing. So, right.
I mean, it depends on who you're talking to.
It does. And I'm uber organized like that. And my cans, I will be honest, they are, you know, organized, and they are rotated by date, and they have different shelves, and there's a whole system. But
I like that.
When my brother comes to visit, he destroys my whole system, like on purpose. He'll open the cabinets, he moves all my stuff around, I tweak out. Like, it's great.
It's one
but
thing,
that's a ridiculous thing.
Yes, it makes no sense, but that's like, but at the same time, right? Like, it's okay if you have those little quirks, let's say, like, right? I mean, I don't know. I have that too. My thing is, I have similar things. I can't really think of one where my partner would be like, well, it's like this.
Right. He'll name them all off. Right?
I'm like, thank you. But like, it's okay if you have those, and it's okay if you want to have it a certain way, but it's another thing if you're kind of like feeling almost like controlled by it.
Yes.
Like,
correct. And it's okay to laugh at some of your like silly thing. Like, I know that's a silly thing in the grand scheme of life. Yeah. It's a silly thing, right? It really does not affect whether my kids eat or don't eat today, whether the cans are all faced out or not. As long as there's cans with food in it for them to eat, that's the important thing. But learning how to, like, for me, learning how to just relax about it and just be like, okay, sometimes the cans are going to be done. Or when I empower the kids to put the groceries away, sometimes the cans aren't. And instead of flipping out about it like I would in the past, like I would be like, oh my God, the shelves have to be redone. And then I would stay up for hours and redo shelves. This did not need to happen, right? So like, I had to learn how to laugh at that quirk about myself and just be like, okay, sometimes it'll be good and sometimes it won't. And I'm just going to find peace with it. I'm going to move on in life.
Sometimes everything,
perspective.
Sometimes it just will be messy and we're going to embrace it.
Yeah, it's true. That's it. We're going to be done.
Yeah.
Let it happen. I love it.
So I feel like this is a good final word. Like, we need more joy. We need more fun. We just need to embrace the mess. I'm all for embracing the mess. Like, I like it. I love mess. Mess is awesome. Because then you also get the joy. Then you also enjoy having everything like neat and tidy again. Right. If everything is neat and tidy, it's kind of like, it's always neat and tidy. But if something is messy, you're like, oh, and now it's neat and tidy. Ooh, nice.
That's nice. That's a good feeling. Yeah. So it's true. Kind of
also,
it's a small win.
Yeah, you don't bereft yourself of that. So embrace the mess. True. Where are you embracing the mess online? Where can people find you, connect with you?
Absolutely. They can find me at theburnedOutBusinessMom.com. Right over there. They can check me out. I have a podcast as well. It's called the Burned Out Business Moms Podcast.
Yay. So, sounds good. Awesome. Before I let you go, I have always one last question because I always need new ideas. What book are you currently reading?
Oh my goodness. I am reading The 30-Day Sobriety Experiment by Anastasia Forrest.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah, she was actually, from what I understand, she was pretty heavy into alcohol. So she's like turned her life around and kind of wrote this book to help. She's launching a sobriety coaching platform, which is pretty cool. So the book so far seems good. I really like it.
Yay. Okay. I'm going to add that to my never ending pile.
Right. True.
But of my own making, because I always ask people what book they're reading, but I think I love awesome. It. MJ, thank you so much for being on the Scenic Route podcast with me and talking with me about mess and burnout and everything in between. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Scenic Route podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and that you can take something from it that feels right to you. I'd be so grateful if you could share the Scenic Route podcast with others. As always, you can head over to scenicroutepodcast.com to check out all links and resources from today's episode. Oh, and while you're there, don't forget to download my free email course, Intuitive Branding Invitation, to teach you how you can successfully tune into your own brand frequency and rediscover your brand's unique gifts, strengths, and talents. So thanks again. Talk soon.